Yesterday, we spoke about why some brands appear everywhere in AI answers without doing much of the visible work. And we ended up with an important idea that AI doesn't pick the best brand, it picks the safest explanation to reuse. Now, today, I want to step back and explain why all of this makes sense. Because once you see that framework, a lot of confusion around search, SEO, and AI disappears. Now, search today isn't magic, right? It's engineering. For years we treated that search as though it's a black box. Now you publish content, you optimize for keywords, you build links, and then something happens. When it worked, we call it as a great SEO success, but when it didn't, we blamed the algorithms. But AI search exposes something which is quite important. Now there is no magic happening here, right? Because there is no updates that these LLMs are releasing for the website publishers to optimize their content on, right? So there is a system which it is being followed. Unfortunately, the system is a black box. So we may not be able to know the rules for playing each and everything. However, definitely the system follows specific rules. So let me explain that. Now, the search engineering framework in simple terms, at a high level, the modern search works in 4 layers. It's not about the rankings, it's not keywords, it has 4 layers. The first layer is understanding the question itself. Because it is such a lengthy prompt that people are expected to type. So when someone asks that question, now AI does not treat it as a single query, right? It tries to understand what is being asked or what is that context that this question is being asked. And this is why two people can ask same question and get different answers. I think we covered this on day 3, day 4. Now, the system is interpreting the intent, right? It's not matching the words. It's trying to understand your history. It's trying to understand what are you expecting back. Now, this is the first thing, understanding the question. The second is breaking that question down. And this is where the questions get break down into various parts. It looks for definitions. It looks for comparisons, any risks that could be found out. And you don't see this happening, right? But this is very critical. Now, if your content is only answering the surface question and ignores the underlying sub questions, then it becomes less useful. Now, the third one is retrieval, right? Now, after the question is breakdown, and depending on the various factors, then the various track is being made, whether it just directly picks up definition from its learning or it does a live search and retrieves the answer. Now, this is the part most people are familiar with. The system looks for relevant information from indexes, from the databases, from APIs. If you're connecting it, there are quite a lot of connections available where ChatGPT could be connected with SEMrush and others, any known sources. But here's the key point. Now, this retrieval, this does not decide the visibility, right? It only decides that what to be considered, basically collecting that information, retrieving it. Now, this is where traditional SEO mostly stops because AI search doesn't work like that. Now, because after the retrieval comes the most important layer, the selection and synthesis. Now, this is where the day 9 fits in, where the system has multiple correct pieces of information and it has to decide which explanation can it safely combine, which one to reduce that uncertainty, and which ones won't contradict the answer itself, because then it's big trouble. Now, this is where the clarity beats the authority. Now, this is where the specific, being more specific for the answer beats the coverage. And this is where the trade-offs beat the bold claims that the brands make. Now, once you see this, a lot of things come obvious, right? Like why ranking number 1 doesn't guarantee the AI visibility. It's because of that. Now, why generic content gets ignored, why some brands keep showing up everywhere. Yesterday, I showed you a snapshot for, I think it was about SIP versus gold, a kind of a query. And then mostly LLMs are giving weightage to those news websites, which are having not just news websites, but content which is having very depth and having a clear synopsis about the content. So they were getting a lot of coverage compared to the generic blogs like Grow and other websites have been traditionally having. Now, this could also be the reason why some brands keep showing up everywhere. Now, they are not gaming the system. I don't think these brands have optimized like specific to LLMs, because they have followed the best practices, and they are simply easier to integrate into the reasoning pipeline itself. Now, this is where the search engineering fits in, because it's not optimizing for just one layer. like a unidirectional, okay, user asks a question and then the content gives the answer. Rather, it's designing the content that survives multiple layers, like we just mentioned, right? When a user asks a question, understanding the question, breaking that question down, and then retrieving the various answers, and then selecting the best answer and then showing to the user. Now, in these 4 steps, most teams only optimize for the retrieval part. They think in terms of keywords, pages, rankings, right? Now, the selection part, this mostly happens by, in traditional sense, Google index, Google search itself, they have their own algorithms and they decide on it. So it was unknown. Now, in search engineering, we are looking at a different question. Now, our question here is, will this explanation that we have made, this content, does it make sense after the system breaks the question apart and tries to recombine multiple sources? So that is the bar now. So it's no longer we expect the entire answer will be that we are the ones going to be cited. We need to look at how we can coexist with the other answers also. And these LLMs, or let's say this AI, looks at our content as a bit more safe to use alongside with other brands. Now that is the game. Now previously we were fighting for rankings, number 1, number 2, number 3. But here the game is, how do we coexist within the answer, and hopefully that the user selects us or gets to know more about a brand as we get more and more cited on the answers. Now that's the bar now. Now, this is also why we keep saying that AI visibility is not about hacks, right? It's about the structure. It's about being precise about who is this content for, when does this apply, most importantly, when it doesn't apply, and what are the trade-offs. Now, this reduces risks, and systems prefer such low risk explanations. So here's the core takeaway for today: plan a content which is really helpful. Basically, if you take away all the fun stuff around it, the core is giving very useful content. That's about it. Now, this kind of search isn't magic, it's engineering. Now, in the next episode, we'll zoom into one specific part of that framework, like how AI breaks a single question into multiple subqueries. Now, because once you understand that, you'll never write content the same way. Of course, it doesn't mean we have the magic wand where you'll be coding the content. Absolutely not. The idea is to give as much precedence as possible. For example, how we used to add a lot of rules, especially for the BFSI. Let's say if adding disclaimers on content, where traditionally if we are going to lose money because of something, there's a risk because of that, so there's always a disclaimer being added. So how do we ensure everything is added in a right way, so your core content idea doesn't change? The idea here is, what all the things that we add to ensure that the content is really helpful, and most importantly, what are the risks that it carries? That's we'll dive deep into that tomorrow. And yeah, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the session so far. See you tomorrow.